Welcome, everyone, to the Over Under Movies podcast, where we take a prominent figure or franchise in the world of filmmaking and ask the simple question, are they overrated or underrated? My name is Jason Gong, joined as always by my co-host, Dylan DeAngelis.
Hello, everybody.
And on today's pod, we're talking about Fight Club.
Yeah, boy.
I mean, the first rule of Fight Club.
Yeah, we're breaking the first rule by even doing this podcast.
Yeah, we're not supposed to talk about it. We're breaking the second rule even
Yeah, that's true. That's
talking about Fight Club. And yet we're going to do it because we are brave men. Before we get to the meat of the episode, we want to remind everyone that this podcast exists in both audio and video formats. So you can check us out on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, wherever you get your daily dose of dopamine. Also, if you're interested in supporting the show, we do have a Patreon page where we have perks ranging from getting your name in the credits all the way up to early episode access and even being a co-host on an episode. That link, along with links to all of our socials, including our Overrated Club Discord server, can be found in the description of this episode. So, before we get into determining whether it's underrated or overrated, we have to determine how it's currently rated. Dylan, you just rewatched this movie again earlier this week. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts on it? How many times had you seen it previously?
I've probably seen it like 4 or 5 times before this. This is a movie I'd seen a good bit.
Yeah, same. I think that might have been like the 7th time I watched that movie.
It's a movie that's got pretty good rewatchability. I mean, it's entertaining. It's long. You know, I'm not a fan of long movies, but it's okay. Like, I think it's paced fairly well. It's good performances, obviously, and it's Fincher.
Yeah, Fincher's always fun to watch. And I do think this is like one of his best that like to this day.
Yeah, for a director that's made like a ton of good movies, this stands out as like arguably his best movie.
Yeah, I think it is still my favorite. I love this movie. Spoilers for the direction this podcast is going to go, but I adore this film.
Well, I mean, this podcast is not whether Fight Club is a good or a bad movie. That'd be boring. It'd be a boring idea. Right now, we got to we got to figure out a rating for it. Let's see how high we go here.
So I think critically, this movie did pretty well. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's got a 79% critic score.
Wow, really?
Solid. And then it's got a 96% audience score.
That's not surprising.
Yeah, general audiences do like this movie quite a bit.
Do you have the box office numbers for this one?
No, but I can pull them up.
Okay, I can filibuster for a second here.
I mean, I have them.
Okay.
101.2 million. The budget was between 63 and 65 million.
Okay, so it wasn't like a huge hit.
No,
it wasn't making Oppenheimer movie is what you're saying.
A little bit of a flop, but I think that lends to the idea that it's more of a cult classic.
Well, this movie also came out in 1999.
Yeah,
1999, famously a loaded year for movies.
Mm-hmm. What else came out that year?
Saving Private Ryan came out in 1999.
That is tough to compete with.
A film called The Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
A film called Star Wars: The Phantom Menace.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the Shakespeare in Love? I think Shakespeare in Love might have won Best Picture for this year.
Interesting.
I mean, yeah, correct me in the comments if I fucked up the year there. It's possible. But yeah, 1999 is considered like one of the best years like ever for movies.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And this one I think stands out like from the list you just gave me. This is probably my favorite of them. I think part of what we have to consider when figuring out how this is ranked is sort of like all the revisionist views of this movie now that elements of it have been co-opted by like the alt-right and the
like incel
community. Yeah, so similar with like how the Matrix, the idea of getting red-pilled is now this thing that incels talk about. Fight Club has really been co-opted by a lot of angry young men.
Yeah, it's so weird because, like you said, through no fault of the movies, it's been turned into something that, frankly, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Which, okay, let's just talk about like the general plot of the movie real quick. The movie is about Edward Norton's character who is an insomniac. He's got like a boring 9-to-5 job. He's got a boring IKEA furniture apartment, and to him, like, this is living the life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he has Brad Pitt come into his life, Tyler Durden, who just flips his world upside down and makes him reevaluate everything. And somehow it's done very well in the movie, but it is a little jarring, especially on rewatch, that like it very quickly goes from them like making a literal fight club
Mm-hmm.
where just like regular men show up and they just like punch each other. And then like, I mean, it's like MMA, like once one guy's down, like they stop the fight. And then it evolves into them creating this nationwide domestic terrorist organization that is trying to, destroy like the central financial system of the United States. This movie really goes through some progressions.
Yeah, it's an insane movie. It's so fun to watch. But yeah, through that journey, they introduced like the idea of everyone feeling like a special snowflake. And that's like a term that a bunch of alt-right and even like regular right people use to make fun of just people who want to feel special. They kind of just use it as a term to make fun of all liberals, I think. And obviously, Chuck Palahniuk was not writing a right-wing manifesto when he wrote the novel Fight Club. So it's been a weird kind of transformation for how this movie is viewed in the public eye.
Because I guess like the big crux of it is like, do you look at these characters and do you see them as like revolutionaries? Do you see them as good guys? Or are these like deeply, deeply troubled individuals? Spoilers, I guess we can spoil like the big twist of the movie. If you haven't seen Fight Club, go watch Fight Club. It's a good movie.
Yeah, actually turn this off if you haven't seen it. Don't listen to this one until you've seen Fight Club.
It's a big spoiler. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so Tyler Durden's made up. he's imagining Brad Pitt for the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
Brad Pitt is basically like an altered ego that he invents. That's like all of the things that he cannot be because he's boring and he's a cuck or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Brad Pitt is like the coolest dude in the world. He's fucking yoked.
Yeah, he's so strong.
He is as shredded as I've ever seen a human in a movie.
Yep.
And he's just awesome. Also, as we mentioned before, is leading a domestic terrorist organization.
Yeah.
That the film culminates in them blowing up a ton of buildings.
Yeah, so that Durden character, played by Brad Pitt, is basically designed to be the coolest, most charismatic, hottest person you've ever seen. And he's also the bad guy.
Yeah, he's not a good person. He's not. You shouldn't watch this movie and go, wow, I want to be just like that.
Yeah.
If that's your thought process coming out of this movie, seek help.
Yeah.
Seek professional help.
Like, bad guy is a little bit too simplistic. The film's a little more nuanced than that, but he's definitely not a good guy and he's not a role model. But the idea is that he charms all these young men who are lost and looking for a cause or something to believe in. And he charms them all into becoming like his space monkeys that will do anything he wants them to in the name of Project Mayhem.
Yeah, these arbitrary sets of rules that he put together. Like everybody, it's a meme now that first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club.
Mm-hmm.
Second rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. First rule of Project Mayhem is you do not ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
This stuff is stupid. It's like ridiculous. It's just made up shit that he's just using to like indoctrinate these guys.
Yep. So I would argue that like the thesis of the movie is that
don't be like this guy.
You should be your own person, which is something that Tyler advocates, but you can't be your own person if you are joining a cult led by a man like Tyler Durden. But yeah, so a lot of people take the wrong lessons from this movie, which means that people who don't like those people kind of have come to see this as like a bad movie or an immoral movie.
Does this movie do more harm than good?
Yeah. And it's also viewed as such a dude movie, and it is.
It's very true. I cannot stress this enough. This is a movie about men. This is a movie for men.
Yeah.
There's one female character in this movie.
Yeah, and she's
not a great person either.
She's pretty objectified, like, and I don't just mean like sexually, like she almost is like an object or like a MacGuffin within the context of the movie.
Yeah, she has no real like personality of her own.
Yeah, I mean she's an interesting and fun character for sure, but she doesn't have like really tangible goals for herself that the movie explores.
Yeah, especially with the way that it's set up at the beginning of the movie where Edward Norton's character is going to all these different self-help groups that he does not directly affiliate with. Like he's going to a group for men with testicular cancer, which he does not have testicular cancer. That's how he runs into Marla Singer, played by Helena Bonham Carter. Really, another really great casting choice here. Plus, she's great in the movie.
Yeah.
But obviously, she does not have testicular cancer.
Yeah.
but like they like have to divvy up all the different groups that they go to so people don't catch on to them.
Yeah, Chuck Palahniuk comes up with some really weird concepts for novels that so far this I think is the only one that's translated really successfully to screen. I think
Yeah,
this
I've
had,
never read the book to this. Like, how similar is the book to this movie?
the book is like really short, so the movie kind of fleshes out some stuff, and then the ending is completely different. I can't remember exactly how the book ends, but it ends with him in the hospital with I guess the orderlies or something telling them that they're waiting for Tyler's return. The movie ends with this really spectacular shot of Edward Norton and Marla Singer just looking out at the destruction of Project Mayhem. Project Mayhem succeeds in destroying the financial district of this unnamed city and wiping away all credit card debt.
Apparently, that's a thing in the late '90s. Like, all you got to do is blow up the buildings, and there goes the
Yeah.
credit card debt.
I guess that must have been like partially true. I don't know.
I mean, this is still like early internet, I guess. So I get maybe that stuff just like wasn't like cloud based yet.
It could just be not true also.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a plot device.
A fiction, yeah. But they watch that destruction go on around them and they hold hands, and Edward Norton's kind of he says everything's gonna be okay or something along those lines. And Where Is My Mind by the Pixies plays, and then there's a flash of a penis.
That's
it's
true.
just the greatest ending. It's such a good ending to a movie.
He says, "You met me at a very strange time in my life."
Oh yeah, that's
understatement of the century.
Oh, it's so good. It's so beautiful.
But what do you think like really elevates this above like Fincher's other work? Like what makes this stand out so much?
I think, yeah, this might be controversial, but I think it's the writing. I think it's the source material. I think Chuck Palahniuk knocked it out of the park. Like the performances are incredible, but you're gonna get good performances out of those three leads. Like, and if you're David Fincher, you're definitely going to. So David Fincher, all his movies have great performances, but this one stands out above them. And the reason for that, I think, is because Fight Club is such a weird source material to adapt. And Fincher figured out how to make it very cinematic.
Yeah, Fincher is a note. I mean, I'm sure we'll do a Fincher episode eventually. I mean, he's a noted like crazy person when it comes to working with his actors.
Mm-hmm.
He'll make his actors do like 100 takes if that's what it requires to get the perfect performance out of a scene.
Mm-hmm.
He'll just like run his actors into the ground if that's what it takes.
Yeah, I don't advocate for that, but I guess it worked in this.
Listen, I mean, the results speak for themselves. Not just in this movie, but like all of his movies, he like really pulls like amazing performances out of actors.
Yeah. So great acting, great writing, great pacing. Like the whole thing just really works for me. Like it's tied up with a ribbon on it.
And what's interesting is the movie has a ton of expository like voiceover from Edward Norton.
Yeah.
Like he's the narrator as much as he is like the main character.
Mm-hmm.
And he's stuck kind of like having to put the puzzle pieces together as the plot's progressing. Cause like the movie just, it goes from like the Fight Club to like Project Mayhem is jumping all around. And like on paper, this movie should not work. It should feel like a mess, but it doesn't.
Yeah, like you said, getting from like the A to C of a guy has insomnia to a guy is trying to stop a domestic terrorist plot is crazy. Like it's an insane thing to put into a 2 hour and 20-minute film, but it works pretty much perfectly in my opinion. It's so fun. Every step of the way it's so fun. Every scene is fun to watch in that movie, and I can't say that about most films.
Yeah, and I mean, we can't say enough about the Brad Pitt performance in this. Do you think this is Brad Pitt's best performance?
Yeah.
Like this is number one.
I'm trying to think of like what else compares. Yeah, this is, I mean, he gets to just play a character that is like charming and cool to a fictional degree because the character, even within the movie, does not really exist. So he gets to be the coolest guy ever. And that's a good role for Brad Pitt to play.
Yeah, it's a role that's set up for him, right? Like he's given the keys to make it his own. Like Edward Norton, he's kind of painted into a box a little with that character. He's kind of stuck being the boring guy. I mean, Brad Pitt, he can, he can do whatever he wants with Tyler Durden.
Oh yeah. So with all that being said, with our feelings about the movie being said, how do you think it's rated?
I mean, this is high up there, so arguing that this movie is underrated is going to be a tough task for you. I say this is like going 1 to 10 is like a 9. I
Yeah.
mean, is that?
I would say like an 8. I would say this movie does have a lot of haters because of the way it's been recontextualized.
It's up, and I will say, maybe it's a bit of a hot take. I think it's like perfectly valid if you don't like this movie
I think so
because how it's been co-opted.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is fine to dislike a movie for whatever reason, but I think the movie itself does not agree with like the views of the people that have been co-opting it. In fact, I would say it has like the opposite views. I would say that because of the haters, that it probably brings it down to like a 7 or 8. I'll say 8. I think a lot of people would say that this movie is overrated. Like if you look at the letterboxd reviews and things like that, I think there are people that just don't really like this movie. And also, we looked at the Rotten Tomatoes score. 79% is not that high. It's solid, but it's not.
Especially for Fincher. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that Rotten Tomatoes is kind of right on the money, 79, and I would give it an 8 out of 10 for how it's currently rated.
Okay, we'll split the difference. We'll go 8.5.
Sure. All right, so then we have to talk about whether it's overrated at an 8.5 or underrated. So you are arguing that this is an overrated film. What do you got?
Well, I think the crux of saying that this movie is overrated is definitely tied to its legacy now as this movie for like the alt-right pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
You got to imagine like any school shooter or domestic terrorist of the last 20 years in America. Fight Club's probably one of their favorite movies.
Oh no.
This is like if you go into a dude's room and he's got a Fight Club poster.
Oh no, I had that poster.
You're immediately like double checking where the exits are.
Oh crap.
Through no fault of the movie, through no fault of the movies, it's thought of in a certain light now, and it's a movie that gets like riffed off of by these characters that are stating like things that they believe in, but the movie is not endorsing. It's weird. Like we're gonna be doing we're gonna be doing a podcast on oh my god, I forgot his name again. The Dutch director that we're doing,
Paul Verhoeven.
Paul Verhoeven. I don't know why I can't remember his name. Even though I'm the one that's seen his movies between the two of us. But we're doing a Paul Verhoeven podcast in a few weeks here, and he has a movie called Starship Troopers, which is a movie about fascist propaganda, and it's made as a fascist propaganda movie, and it got negative critic reviews because people thought that it was fascist propaganda when it is satirizing fascist propaganda. It's a very similar situation here with Fight Club.
Yeah.
Where Fincher is depicting like the worst aspects of like this mindset and saying this is not necessarily a good thing. Tyler Durden is absolutely the antagonist of this movie, but people don't see it that way. And I mean, that is the crux of identifying that this movie is overrated. And I think like as it goes on and on, you know, people look at the memes of this movie more than like the actual plot of it. You know, people don't take that like, you know, 30-yard step back of like what the actual story of this movie is, where it's, you know, it's a man who's kind of losing his mind and it turns into this whole other thing entirely. People just think of it as like the shirtless shot of Brad Pitt, like smoking a cigarette, looking like the coolest badass ever.
Yeah, or when he's shirtless or completely nude and he has the yellow rubber gloves on.
Yeah. You know, when he's saying like you're not your job, you're not your furniture, you're not your fucking khakis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's a movie that just has like a lot of quotes that people will remember from it. And when a movie is like very quotable, it tends to stick in the consciousness of people like over time, regardless of like the actual quality of the film. I'm actually on the other end. Like I think Fincher has like a bunch of other movies that are better than this. I think that this has just had like a lot of staying power because, like you said, this is a movie about men. Men love this movie.
Yeah.
Like it's like it really speaks to like the monkey brain aspect of us that like dudes have in the back of their head of like, man, I just want to like get in a fist fight. Like,
Yeah,
I just want to fucking like punch somebody. Like, it'd be so badass. And
yeah,
it's like, okay, like you're not really getting the message of the movie. if like if like the primary fans of a movie are people that are completely missing the main message of it, like the film's probably a little overrated then. Like maybe the film just didn't do a good enough job at like expressing like how the audience should actually feel about this.
yeah. I mean, that's an interesting thought. I think I'll be able to rebut some of that. But your main argument then is that because so many, I guess, alt-right young men or just young men in general misinterpret this movie, then that means it didn't do a good enough job of kind of stating its message, and that a lot of the love for this movie is coming from people who don't even understand it. Is that sort of
Yeah, and
what
I
you're
and I
saying?
think the way that the movie is structured kind of goes, helps that as well because the movie is a bit disjointed,
Mm-hmm.
and at times it does, when you're especially on rewatch, it does feel like just like a collection of scenes that happen one after another, and there's not a lot of like, you're not really feeling the plot progression as much. I think that's why the movie has narration. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes that's why you put narration in a movie is because you're like, we're kind of missing some connective tissue here. We need the narrator to kind of fill in some blanks for the audience. So you're able to like pick out like individual scenes from this movie and kind of use it however you want to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I think this movie flows really well and naturally, actually. But I would also agree that a lot of the way you remember this movie is just the most memeable, most quotable parts of it. And you might not necessarily, I wouldn't be able to describe the plot from A to C super easily. And I've seen this movie like 7 or 8 times.
When you're thinking of this movie, you're not thinking of Meatball's giant man tits, and the giant man tits are a very important plot point.
Yeah.
I mean, that character, like low key, is like the most important character of the movie. His
Yeah.
name is Robert Paulson.
Hmm.
Uh, it shows like the human toll of everything that Edward Norton's character has done in the movie.
Hmm.
How these, how him like losing his fucking mind has like affected all of these other dudes because they make so many of those other men like faceless basically and like put them in like black shirts like you said they do become like lackeys that
Hmm.
kind of become like homogenous. But that guy, Bob, he knew Bob before Tyler, so him getting shot in the head doing a Project Mayhem mission, you know, I think that the movie doesn't do a great job at it, but I'm guessing that that's like the main inciting incident to kind of like snap him out of it to be like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah, because Bob is sort of this like sacrificial lamb in the movie. He's the innocent character that suffers, and thus the protagonist has to change something in order to learn something. So, yeah, I think I didn't really think about it, but I think you're right. Robert Paulson might be like the most important character in the film because this film ultimately is about masculinity and just like what it means to be a man versus like toxic masculinity. This idea that you have to be like Tyler Durden. And there's no character that's so overt about like what does it mean to be a man than this character who had testicular cancer and now has man boobs and has this soft-spoken voice. He used to be a bodybuilder. Now he's trying to get something back by joining a fight club and committing terrorist acts. No one exemplifies that better than Robert Paulson. So that's an interesting thought. Anything else for the overrated argument?
No, that's the crux of it. I mean, I'm kind of like spoiling like my like very end thoughts of
Oh,
this movie,
yeah.
but like my ultimate opinion is like whatever you think of this movie is probably right. There's no like wrong
Yeah.
opinions of this movie.
It's like a Rorschach test.
Yeah,
Rorschach's another character that gets like recontextualized all the time.
yeah. We'll have to do a Watchmen episode
Oh
eventually.
yeah.
Watchmen's an interesting movie to talk about.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, let us know in the comments, if you want us to do like any of these movies that we're talking about. We're open to doing movies, we're open to doing directors, individual actors,
Franchises.
franchises, preferably not ones that have 20 movies that we need to go back and watch. But we're open to it,
Yeah, we'll
whatever you
do
got.
it. We'll do it. We are
Yeah, we're movie fans. We got time.
Cool. Why this movie is underrated. So I think what you said about it being easy to misinterpret is really interesting. And the fact that a lot of dudes are just drawn to it from like this base instinct of wanting to get into a fist fight. I actually think that's one of the coolest parts about this movie is that there's such a primal connection that most dudes are gonna have to this where you're like, yeah, let's go outside and I want you to hit me as hard as you can. So there's that really idiotic part of like our monkey brains that it appeals to. And then it wraps it in like all this nuance, all these ideas. It kind of questions masculinity and toxic masculinity and puts forth all of its theses after it hooks you with that primal urge to fight. I think it's so cool. I've never seen another movie that makes me want to go punch myself.
Here's a question: if you knew about a fight club in our city, would you go and fight somebody at a fight club just once? Because that is one of the rules of Fight Club is that if it's your first night, you have to fight
Just once?
just once.
I would say definitely from the time I first saw this movie, like let's say 15 to 25, easy yes. Easy yes, I would go and do it. And the only reason I wouldn't now is because I just hurt my shoulder while rock climbing. So it's kind of like sore and I think it would mess it up more. So now I have to think about things like, will my health insurance cover
We're not
this?
we're not young men anymore.
Yeah, I'm too old to be in Fight Club. But like during the prime years, would I go to a Fight Club if I knew it was like safe, if it was like set up like this? Actually, this was not safe.
No,
These people-
this was in a dirty ass basement.
It was in Lou's Tavern. I'm wearing the shirt for Lou's Tavern. My old
Oh, yeah.
roommates got me this.
Shout out to Lou,
Yeah, Lou comes down. He's like, "Who am I? I'm fucking Lou."
friend of the pod, Lou. Owner of Lou's
Thank
Tavern.
you, Lou. That's where we're shooting from, actually. Yeah, I would go. Would you go? If you were 25?
I would say I would do it now, honestly. Like
do it now?
just like once, yeah.
Yeah, just one
I
time.
mean, if I take my glasses off, yeah, not get my glasses.
Yeah, that's
broken.
what I'm thinking too.
But I mean, I don't know. Here's a question: have you ever been punched in the face? Like legitimately punched in the face?
One time after watching this movie, I had one of my buddies punch me in the face, but he didn't punch me that hard.
How much alcohol was involved?
Not that much. I think we were
You weren't- you-
freshmen, so
you weren't
we didn't
numbed up?
Yeah, I don't remember, but it did hurt. It did make me think like, and he wasn't going full force either. It did make me think that I wouldn't be very good at Fight Club.
Yeah, I mean, listen, getting punched in the face, it hurts both people. It hurts your hand a lot.
Yeah, I mean, your skull is hard.
Especially like if you see people that get in like fights at like bars and stuff like that when they're doing like the straight jabs, like that's the worst type of punch to do. You don't
Yeah.
want to punch somebody directly in the face. That's why you always see like MMA fighters, they go like around.
Oh, they're doing like hooks and
They're
stuff.
going for like the temple and the side of the face.
Yeah, I guess I don't know much about fighting, so I
Yeah.
would be bad at Fight Club for sure.
You ever watch those like slap fights that are like they're like on like TikTok and stuff?
No.
There's like a whole like organization of I swear these guys they like stand like a foot apart from each other.
Oh yeah,
and they just slap each other as hard as they can in the face.
Yeah, that stuff's really dumb.
I would not do that.
That's not Fight Club's cooler than that. That's actually kind of lame in my opinion.
It's like brain damage speed run.
Yeah, if you're a slap fighter, don't leave hate comments for us, but I don't approve of your
Okay,
pastime.
like, do whatever you want with your life, but there's better ways to do it.
I'm
than
gonna
that.
scroll past it.
If there's any fight clubs in the Philadelphia area, feel free to leave a comment down below.
Yeah, please.
We'll have to make a cameo appearance.
But yeah, this movie, I just think it's so good. I know so many people who haven't seen it because of the sort of reputation it has.
Yeah.
Not only does it have that reputation of being like an alt-right manifesto, but it's also like such a film bro movie where a lot of annoying film bros like us won't shut up about it, like us right now. And that turns a lot of people off to it. So a lot of people that would like this movie just haven't seen it yet. I've showed this movie to like 3 or 4 women in my life, and they're always like, yeah, it was pretty good.
They're like, oh, I'm getting a text from my mom, actually.
I gotta go. No, but like, I think everyone can see that this is like a really high quality movie with great performances, great cinematography, really interesting writing. So for me, it hits on every level. And I think it doesn't really deserve the reputation that it has as being this movie that's just for bros or film bros. I just think it's a fantastic film. Also, I wrote Brad Pitt looks so hot, which is true. He becomes actually, you could use this for overrated too, because that's not a healthy body image for men.
Yeah, he's way too
He's
thin.
he's super underweight. I think when men are trying to get into this shape for like superhero films and stuff like that, or Mac from Always Sunny when he gets really jacked, they cite this character a lot as who they want to look like. And then when they describe the process of looking like him, it sounds awful for like all of like 6 months to a year of your diet and
Yeah,
exercise.
you need to severely drop your calories.
Yeah.
Because like in order to get your abs to pop like that, you need to be very low body fat percentage.
Yeah. And to get the actual look on the day of like that shot, you have to be dehydrated too.
Yeah. Which is what professional bodybuilders do for competitions. They
Yeah.
dehydrate themselves. It's not healthy. It puts you in a very vulnerable state.
So maybe Brad Pitt looking that good doesn't work for my underrated argument. People should not look like that, but he does look really good. Jared Leto gets beaten up. Kind of cool.
That's a plus.
Kind of fun.
Unfortunately,
Yep.
he gets the shit beat out of him too. Like if you want to see Jared Leto beaten to a bloody pulp and all of his teeth knocked out,
Yep.
this is the movie for you.
Yep. And then I would say this is one of the few movies that's like better than the book. And I believe this is one of the very few movies that the author agrees that it's better than the book. Or at least Chuck Palahniuk has said that he likes the ending of this more. So that's something that's pretty special. I think this movie as an adaptation is pretty much flawless, and the things that it chooses to change are for its benefits. So this is one of my perfect movies in my opinion. And I do think it's underrated because lots of people haven't seen it that I think would like it.
All right, so we've given our arguments. Now for the verdict, we like heart of hearts. Do you think this is like overrated or underrated? Or in my opinion, this may be a movie that's like properly rated.
Yeah, is that where you're gonna go?
I'm gonna zag a little bit here because I've been very vocal with you that I think calling something properly rated is the coward's way out.
Yeah, we're only on episode 5 and you're already changing.
But I do think this movie is like properly rated. I agree with what I said earlier. Whatever you think of this movie is right.
I like that a lot. That should be the takeaway from this episode. I think that's the right way of phrasing it. I guess I don't fully agree. I think this movie is underrated. I think more people should see this movie and they'd have a great time with it. I have it at 5 stars on Letterboxd, so it is, in my opinion, like about as perfect as a movie can get. And I would like to see more people see it without thinking about sort of the way it's been recontextualized over the years.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like that, the toothpaste can't go back in the tube for this movie.
Yeah.
It's going to be like that forever. People are going to get the wrong lesson from this film.
Yeah. Yeah, which is unfortunate, but ultimately it's a movie that does have a lot of sticking power, and people are going to be watching it for the first time for like years and years and years. So we'll see what the cultural view of it is like 10, 15 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I think that's the verdict. You're coming in at properly rated.
Properly rated, yep.
I'm sticking with underrated. That's going to be it for this one, guys. Let us know in the comments, did we get it right? What are some topics you'd like to see for future episodes? Make sure to leave a like on this episode and consider supporting the show by checking out our Patreon page. For myself, for Dylan, we will catch you guys next week on the Over Under podcast. See you at the movies.
See you guys.